I love Africa and I love African leaders. Yeah, through God, I love them. I love them so much. Especially when they take a platform to deliver a particular message or to address an issue. I love the way they address. I love the way they talk, the way they do things. Yeah, they explain to us as a people, as ordinary people, as a citizen of Africa. Yeah, they make things easy for us. They make us understood everything, especially when it comes to politics, to economics, to geopolitics, to development, technology. They explain to us properly. Only one thing they don't tell us is about corruption. Yeah, they don't explain us about corruption. They don't tell us how corruption works. They don't. And the function of the corruption, they don't. And when you ask them, Mr. President, can you explain us how corruption works? They're like, no, you are out of context. African leaders, they don't know much about corruption. They know much about everything except... Recently, I was listening to the president of Uganda. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was just on TikTok. He was addressing a particular issue to Ugandans. Yeah. And he was like, Africa is nice. Fools don't die in Africa. I'm like, really, President? Like, yeah. I'm like, no, they die. Like, no, they don't die. Like, no, those are humans, they die. Like, no, fools don't die in Africa. I'm like, no, Mr. President, they die. He's like, no, they don't. Then I was like, have you seen a funeral of a foolish man in Africa? I'm like, yeah, I have seen it. I'm like, where? Like in DRC. They're like, no, that was not a fool. It was a normal man. Everyone's Uganda. And if you may think about it, maybe correct. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to live in Africa. Sometimes, like, it's easy to survive in Africa. Because in Africa, you can still get something for free. In Africa, you can just walk freely. Especially in DRC. Yeah, it's very easy to live in DRC. DRC is nice. Yeah. Yeah. Even the fools, they survive in DRC. Because in DRC, when you are walking, no one can ask you about papers. No one can ask you about your passport. No one can ask you about visa. No one can ask you about your ID. Because as a citizen of that country, we don't have IDs. We don't have passports. No, we are just living like flyers. And we don't travel, we're just there. Not because we don't want, no way of making it. It's too expensive. We don't travel, we are just there. Just moving around on each other. We are on top of each other there. No passport, no document, nothing. Yeah, unlike France and America. When you go to France, you must get your paperwork. You must get your passport, your ID, your visa, and your letter. The reason, to provide the reasons to justify why you're going to France. Yeah. America is the same. When you go to America, yeah, you must provide your visa, provide your passport, your justification. Paper must be ready, show them the reason of you going to America. Because if you go in America, why don't have document, they will call you undocumented. You are undocumented immigrant. When you don't have paper. If you go to France, you don't have paper, they will call you sans papier. Tu es sans papier. Toi, tu es sans papier. Tu es ici en France, tu n'as pas de papier, tu es sans papier. Tu n'as pas de valeur ici. If you go to Russia, you don't have a document, they call you, you are a Range Rover. They just like underestimate, like from Africa to Russia. How did you navigate? What reason? What did you do in order to tell like, hey, you are a Range Rover? Maybe in Russian, like Range Rover. Yeah. Because I just feel like the paper, they could see the paper than humans. Yeah, I mean, if you are producing a paper, you are human. And if you don't have, you are subhuman. That's what the world is going through. No worries. But in Africa, we don't ask papers. You just move around. Just wake up, like one morning you go to the east, the next morning you go to the west, one morning you go to the south, last day you like to the north. That is Africa. You don't need papers, especially in DRC. You don't need much paper. Africa.